I want to welcome each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We prepare for this and look forward to it all year long. This is just a wonderful event for us. I actually had several other offers tonight, but I decided to be here. I mean, that's how much it means to me. Before we go any further, though, I would like all of you to hear the welcome from the wonderful president of the University of Oklahoma, Joe Harris.
Hello, I'm OU President Joe Harris. It's my honor to welcome you to this Neustadt Prize event sponsored by World Literature Today. At the University of Oklahoma, we are extremely proud of the Neustadt Prize program. Thanks to the Neustadt family, for over 5 decades, there have been Neustadt Prizes given on our campus and celebrated all over the world. The acclaimed Neustadt International Prize for Literature and the NSK Neustadt Prize for Children's and Young Adult Literature are world-famous honors. They've been celebrated by the Swedish Academy that awards the Nobel Prize in Literature and by many international writers and scholars. I am so pleased that you can join us in recognizing this jewel in the crown of OU. As we turn to the next 50 years of the Neustadt Prize program, it's only fitting that this year's Neustadt International Prize for Literature goes to a writer of Ananda Devi's achievements and renown. Ananda, who is from Mauritius, holds a PhD in social anthropology and is the author of 30 volumes of novels, short fiction, and poetry. Recently honored by the French Academy and the French government, she is a leading figure in French literature and international culture. Several of her works have been made into films, and she continues to deeply impact those focused on gender relations and women's issues, making her one of the authors shaping the future of literature around the world. In many ways, the Neustadt Prize and its celebration of literary voices from across the globe embodies our fundamental purpose at OU, to change lives. We are grateful to the Neustadt family and World Literature Today for making this important tradition possible. We also thank the many Neustadt Prize winners who have contributed to the richness of literature and culture everywhere. We appreciate all of you who have joined us for this year's festival. Thank you.
He is my boss, but I really appreciate his kind words. So I think we have a good program for you tonight. I hope you paid the babysitter a little extra. No, just kidding. This actually will probably be just a little shorter program than we've done in the past. The Neustadt International Prize for Literature is an award given every other year and sponsored by the Neustadt family, the University of Oklahoma, and the OU International Literary Publication World Literature Today. Widely considered to be one of the top literary prizes anywhere. This is a brag warning coming. This prize is often compared with the Nobel Prize in literature. The New York Times has called the prize the American Nobel. They actually said at one point that the Neustadt Prize is probably only second in the world to the Nobel. Like the Nobel, it is awarded to writers for their entire body of literature, not for a single work. Since it was founded in 1970, over 30 of its laureates, candidates, and jurors have been awarded the Nobel Prize. Around the giving of this prize, WLT creates the Neustadt Lit Fest, which you are attending right now. Is a tradition of recognizing literary excellence and bringing the greatest writers in the world to meet with and inspire OU students. Tonight, World Literature Today joins with the Neustadt family to honor the 2024 winner of the prestigious Neustadt International Prize for Literature, Ananda Devi from Mauritius. The Neustadt programs recognize literature as a source of cultural understanding for the many nations of the world. And we at WLT are honored to be the stewards of this rich tradition, and I think it's not an exaggeration to say that the staff at WLT sees what we do as a cause, and it's a cause they believe in deeply. It now gives me great pleasure to recognize members of the Neustadt family who are here with us tonight. Kathy Neustadt, Nancy Barcelo, Susan Neustadt Schwartz, and Sam Barcelo. Could you please stand so that we can recognize you? Thank you so much for what you do for the University of Oklahoma. And I'm not going to go through the long list of gifts you've given OU because I know it embarrasses you at times to hear. But it's the library, it's the airport, it's a whole bunch of things. And nothing we do in this prize program could happen without you. So thank you so much. There are other good friends tonight that I would like to recognize. I'm just going to go through all these names, and then I'll ask you to stand maybe at the end. Jeffrey Zuckerman, Azim Ali, Marcela Rioseco, Nancy Duncan Porter, Amanda Kordaleski, Bettina Gardels, Liran Yadgar, Katrina Krumbacher, Mina Ramin Sabet, Emily Johnson, Jonathan Stalling, Bill Riggin, Will Evans, Dustin Condren, Karen Thuman, Hari Krishna Anandan, Stephanie Simpson. Thank you all, and if I've missed somebody, I am so sorry. I'm trying to be comprehensive. Could you all stand and let us recognize you? And several people have said to me that this year's Neustadt Lit Fest might be the best ever. And I'm kind of hesitating because we always say that, but it is always amazing. And the thing that occurs to me, and you will get to hear Ananda later, and you'll see what I mean, is that she has such an amazing presence, such an amazing writer, and she just sort of calms a room. You know, I mean, she has a wonderful effect. And also, the members of the Neustadt jury, somehow, they have the same effect. And for years, we brought in the Neustadt International Prize for Literature jury, and we wanted to start bringing in the NSK Neustadt Prize for Children's and Young Adult Literature jury, but for just a lot of practical reasons that they met on Zoom instead. So this was the first year that we actually had the NSK jury, and what a group. I mean, they're just awesome. They're just so, yeah, really incredible. So I want to thank that jury. You know, all of you who are part of the jury, you put your own work aside to come here. You did a lot of work getting ready for this. And Needy Chanani, Susan Fletcher, Guadalupe Garcia, McCall, Varian Johnson, Magdalena Mora, Kate Rafiq, Lauren Tamaki. Hope I haven't missed anybody. Could you all stand and let us recognize you? Danny Ramadan, the one who, the winning juror, I forgot his name, but he's not here, so he won't know. And we'll bring him back next year anyway. So finally, for this part, I want to recognize some very important people. If you are a student of any sort, here or anywhere else, could you please stand so that we can recognize you? You are what this is about, and maybe we don't say that enough, but it's absolutely true. Now, I want to ask Kathy Neustadt in just a moment to come to the podium and talk about the Neustadt tradition at OU. Kathy is the K in the NSK Neustadt Prize for Children's and Young Adult Literature. She lives in Denver, is a freelance field producer for ABC News, and has worked on shows like World News Tonight, Good Morning America, and Nightline. You've probably seen some of her work and didn't know it. She recently, just a few years ago, endowed the Neustadt Jam Fest in Denver, which every fall features visiting authors, artists, musicians, and new films. In 2015, she was honored by the Meisel Center with its Cultural Achievement Award. It was a kind of Person of the Year award. I was there, and it was very impressive. And that year, she also received the Regents Alumni Award for her service to OU. She graduated from the University of Denver in mass communications and has 2 grown children, Tess and Josh Hankin. Please give a warm welcome to my good friend, Kathy Neustadt.
Thanks, RC. Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to be here. I'm happy to be here on this special night honoring Amanda Davey and representing our family. The partnership between my family and OU started many, many years before we ever became affiliated with the prize. When we were growing up, my family's involvement with the university was just always there. There were the Saturday football games. We would learn and hear about the Max Westheimer Airfield, named after my great-grandfather, the Doris Neustadt Wing at the library, and my dad's 7 years as an OU regent. But it was really when they became involved in the prize that I personally began to take notice. Yes, they were really proud of all of their accomplishments, but they seemed to light up in a different way each year when they were talking about the Neustadt Prize, the notable candidates, the process by which they were chosen, and about the joy of having the jurors come to the middle of the country from all over the world to deliberate and choose the new laureate. I remember my dad saying that of all the things they've been involved with, even outside of the university, their contribution to the Neustadt Prize and its importance in the literary world was the one that he was the most proud of. We, too, were proud to be associated with the award, so much so that in 2003, my sisters and I launched the NSK Neustadt Prize for Children's and Young Adult Literature. We worked with RC to inaugurate the prize, and it quickly developed with its own distinctive tradition. To date, the NSK program has distributed over $250,000 in prize money and has honored 11 of the best young adult writers in the world. Next year, we will honor Sherry Demeline, who just was picked yesterday and will be awarded as our 12th recipient next fall. I will also note, as RC acknowledged, this is the first year the NSK juror has come to OU to pick the laureate and to read and show us their works. And it's been so amazing, so exciting, and the beginning of a new tradition. So thank you to you jurors. It's been so wonderful to get to know you and to be with you. We're also incredibly proud of how the Neustadt Prizes continue to involve students. There are Neustadt courses and writing courses which have been established where OU students and many high school students also work with professors and with prize winners on creative and scholarly topics. And some of those students go on to teach literature and work for publishing houses. This byproduct of the prize is a great source of pride that we all feel. So now to the Neustadt International Prize for Literature, which is what we will award tonight. It now consists of a check for $50,000, a prize certificate, but most prominently, the prize has always been associated with a handcrafted silver eagle feather, the symbol for the prize. You will see it tonight. It is thick, heavy, a little over a foot in length. It's the same eagle feather design, which also appears on the silver medallion that we award to the winners of the NSK Neustadt Prize. The image of an eagle feather is a powerful statement. It's traditionally an instrument used for writing, and in so many indigenous cultures, it's associated with creativity, with beauty, and with grandeur. The silver feather also captures many of the same associations that literature itself has. The power to express much about our lives, but also the potential to shape who we become. In effect, the eagle feather captures many of the elements that the Neustadt Prize seeks to recognize and is dedicated to celebrating. Although my grandmother and my parents have passed, they have left an indelible legacy in the uniqueness of this prize. We look forward to continuing to be a part of the Neustadt Prize tradition that our family began nurturing so long ago. Nancy, Susan, and Sam, my nephew Sam, and I are so happy to be here tonight to honor Ananda Devi, the winner of this year's Neustadt International Prize for Literature, and we look forward to many more wonderful occasions like this in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Normally, the winning juror, it'll be Danny Ramadan next fall, we have back, and that person introduces, gives a kind of overview of the career of the writer who's won. In this case, Fabienne Kaynor just couldn't be here, and so we'll miss her. But she'll also, some of her work will be included in the special issue of WLT that will honor Ananda. Instead, we have a distinguished representative from the French Consul's office in Houston, a graduate of the École du Louvre and the Sorbonne, Bettina Gardell's lectures in French universities on innovation and heritage. Currently, she serves as cultural attaché and director of Villa Albertine in Houston for the French Embassy. She's dedicated to strengthening ties between France and the states of Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas through arts and education programming. Please welcome Bettina Gardels.
Thank you for that introduction. I'm pleased to be the second place. Good evening. I would like to first express my gratitude to the team at WLT for their outstanding organization of this festival and for giving me the opportunity to be here with all of you tonight. I am honored to be here as a representative of the French government to introduce Ananda Devi. It is a pleasure to speak about this distinguished writer from the small island of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean. While not everyone can easily spot the little dot on a map, Ananda Devi has nonetheless become known as a writer in French of the first rank. Now, with this prestigious award, the Neustadt International Prize for Literature at the University of Oklahoma, she will reach new heights. With many more readers in the US, I am so pleased to have this modest role in helping to introduce her to an American readership. Her resume could suggest that she is an academic, an anthropologist. She studied at the School of Oriental and African Studies in London. And at that school, she earned a PhD in social anthropology. Her destiny, however, was to become a writer. And in 1977, she published her debut collection of short stories, Solstice. After the year 2000, her acclaim and renown gained greater momentum. In 2006, she published the novel that would be the representative text for the Neustadt International Prize for Literature, Ève de ses décombres, translated into English as Eve out of her ruins. This important work won several prizes, including the Prix des 5 continents de la francophonie. In 2012, it was successfully adapted for the screen by Sharvan Anandan and Hari Krishna Anandan. Her recent literary honors include the Prix Louis Guillou, the Prix Ouest France Étonnant Voyageur, and the Prix Femina des lycéens pour Le Rire des déesses. In 2010, the French government celebrated her as a Chevalier des Arts et des Lettres, the equivalent of the US National Medal of Arts. Finally, in 2023, she received the Prix de la langue française. These are timely signals of her well-deserved acclaim in international literature. It does not happen every day that we can be witnesses at close range as an important writer ascends to the highest ranks in world literature and culture. Tonight is one of these occasions, and I invite you to savor the moment of Ananda Devi's arrival, an experience as unique for us as it is for her. None of us may ever have this experience again. In other words, after I conclude these remarks, she will receive the Neustadt International Prize in Literature, and this will be a signal to the world that she has become one of the most important writers anywhere. Thank you so much.
Okay, now this is the moment we've all been waiting for. I'd like to invite to the podium Ananda Devi, Kathy, Nancy, Susan, and Sam. Could you all come up, please? So quiet in here. Okay, I am going to ask yeah. I'll get out of the way so that you can see this in a second. But I'm going to ask Kathy to give the check. It's not really a check. Checks are electronic these days. But just to have a prop. Go ahead. And I'm going to ask Nancy to give this certificate, real certificate. And I'm going to ask Susan to give something, but I'm going to hold on to it for just a second because Kathy did such a good job of describing the feather. It's really beautiful. There aren't very many of these. I think we have in a vault maybe 7 more. And as I recall, there were 2 places in the United States where this work of art could be reproduced. And I think everybody's died that did them in the past. So we'll see how long those, well, I know how long. Every other year, we'll give one of these. And also, a local craftsman made this beautiful box that says Neustadt out of walnut. So I just wanted you to see this because you won't get another chance. This is it.
I don't know if I want to give it to her after. Congratulations.
So we are going to leave Ananda up here by herself to say, make a few comments. Please give her another appreciation for the wonderful achievement.
Oh my God, this is such an emotional moment. I have to find my voice. I have to try to talk for a few minutes without crying, which is quite difficult for me. I cannot begin to tell you what an absolute joy it is for me to stand in front of all of you today. And especially what an honor it is that the members of the jury of this wonderful prize have chosen to award the prize to my body of work. And it's I can't express enough how grateful I am to them. And of course, I'm so grateful to the Neustadt family who've been here all the time throughout these events, and such a warm and welcoming presence. It's been like sort of entering a family, in fact. And you have been supporting writers from all over the world who might not have been heard at all without this prize, without your support, without your warmth and your openness and listening to these voices from so many different places, even a tiny dot in the Indian Ocean, and which nobody knows about in general in America. And thank you to World Literature Today, the team, so wonderful. I mean, for almost a year we have been exchanging emails, and they have been so supportive and so, again, welcoming, having organized these beautiful events. The students, we've had, so many wonderful conversations. And yeah, I'm sort of like, au septième ciel, in seventh heaven. But I'm going to bring the mood down a little bit, I think, with my speech. Because however much I am buoyed up by this utter joy and elation for receiving this prize, I cannot help thinking that today the world lies heavy on the pen, that each word, each sentence, each piece of writing that we set on the page is fraught and weighted, that it has never been easier to spout lies and leave poisonous trails crisscrossing the world in just a few seconds. It's a soul-destroying mendacity that has become the easiest solution for those who wish to rule, to dominate, to destroy, to grow seeds of hate. How can different voices be heard? We can't help asking. The voices of those who choose to bear witness, to delve into each subject in order to sift truth from fabrication, to try to understand the origins of conflicts, rather than pass judgment without thought and inflict retribution without compassion. How can we not feel powerless against this tsunami of hate? How do we even begin to fight? I think the answer is closer than we may imagine. I only have to look at my bookshelves. With all the books collected, the thousands of books collected over the years, to feel a sense of hope, of brightness. Here, black on white, is a universe so powerful it breaks open old cages and soars over all boundaries. Here is the world in these books, the world we know and wished for. And it has been here all the time. To name just a few who face my writing table when I'm writing, Virginia Woolf, T.S. Eliot, Albert Camus, Toni Morrison, Molière, Sylvia Plath, Aragon, J.M. Coetzee, Rimbaud, Dante, Italo Calvino, Rabindranath Tagore, Arundhati Roy, Mahmoud Darwish, Salman Rushdie, Wole Soyinka, Aimé Césaire, and I could go on. These are just a few of the suns I gravitated towards and orbited as I grew up, both as a person and as a writer. Just below these shelves, not out of any sense of pretentiousness, but because I need them to be easily accessible, are the 30-odd books I have written over my lifetime. Excuse me. The very first is a short story entitled La Cité attelée, published in a French anthology that I wrote when I was 15. The very last is a non-fiction book that came out a month ago, entitled La nuit s'ajoute à la nuit. Night Prolongs the Night, about a Second World War memorial in Lyon, in France, the Montluc prison. Researching and writing this book, I had ample proof, if need be, of the criminal forgetfulness of humankind. It is strange for me to realize that from the first published short story to this last very personal book, and over half a century, I haven't changed much as a writer. My preoccupations, my obsessions, the way I always wanted as a writer to inhabit other people, to listen to those whom the world rarely listened to. In other words, to become a kind of translator of their voices as well as their bodies, have been there from the start. I learned the craft of writing, of course, over these 5 decades, but I can recognize myself in that very first collection of short stories published when I was a teenager. How odd it is to think that something in me had been shaped since my childhood and would never change, not only due to the introspective nature of the child I was, but also to the books I read. I belong to the first generation of women of my family who have been given this extraordinary opportunity to be heard and read. As a Mauritian whose history bears the double wounds of colonial slavery and the transport of indentured laborers from India, writing was, to my mind, a responsibility that couldn't be taken lightly. I often say that several generations of silent women seem to be reading over my shoulder. This feeling of owing something to those who have been permanently silenced has never left me and is even more urgent today. At the same time, it was an utter privilege growing up to have access to so many languages and literatures. I reveled in books as soon as I learned to read on my father's knees when I was 4 years old. Reading fed me, nurtured me, made me grow up perhaps before my age, but there were no limits. Our parents allowed us, my sisters and I, to read voraciously, and the eclectic nature of the books we read helped widen our outlook in a way perhaps that wouldn't be possible today. What I derived from this was an absolute passion for languages, not just words and meaning, but their sheer music. I didn't realize it at that time, but when I wrote, it was as much with my ears as with my mind, but not only that, with all my senses. But perhaps the main link between that young writer and this old one is that I wasn't afraid. From that early age, excuse me, and perhaps because I read many books intended for adults, I wasn't afraid of what I wrote. It is a freedom like no other. This is, after all, the point of being a writer. Dostoevsky said that while nothing is easier than to denounce the evildoer, nothing is more difficult than to understand him. Here we find the key to how writers are able to shed light on the world and illuminate it. By delving in the darkest recesses of the human mind and heart, they help us, readers, to find a way out through understanding. When the road is at its darkest, literature brings forth its own light to guide us through, not with answers, but with questions that we often fail or fear to ask ourselves. And thus it is that while we follow these Virgils into the deepest levels of hell, the language itself, the poetry and the humanity of their thoughts and creations make the unbearable bearable and help us navigate these troubled paths. All art, in this sense, opens a door onto truths we dare not face, where modern communications show us in real time every tragic event happening in the world behind the comfort and protection of our screens. Writers and artists make us step out of this comfort and protection in order to become, belong to, and inhabit their protagonist's fate. In what other context can we become so acutely, so obsessively, so painfully someone else? And I will not say the other, because this is precisely the point. It is no longer the other, but ourselves that we meet in the stories. After all, myths are the great common denominator of all cultures. Going back to early human times, myths have been always our way of resolving the enigma of ourselves, our presence, our existence, our reality. They are ever renewable, reinterpretable, elastic, organic. They are the greatest of fictions. This is why the Odyssey, the Mahabharata, Don Quixote, Shakespeare's plays, and so many texts have kept on living over centuries and millennia. Contemporary ones will do so too, as far as they open up worlds, unfurl an immensity of wonders, constellations both close to us and infinitely far. Burning suns and the birth of a single bud at our feet are all miracles to marvel at. They also lead us to rethink our own place amidst these miracles. Are we part of them? Or have we decided that as the dominant species, we're free to destroy them through our actions and through a distorted form of language? Today, the language we hear from those who shout the loudest tends to imprison people in a bubble where their beliefs are set in stone and reinforced by a self-sustaining phenomenon that leaves out any ambiguity, complexity of thought, balanced outlook, and questioning of oneself. This is the opposite of what writers try to do. This virtual language is not that of the world. It is the narrowest expression of the world. It represents one person's beliefs to the detriment of any constructive thinking, of any enlightenment, any complexity, and especially any creative undertaking. I'm sorry, I think it's emotion and nerves, but my throat is... Writers, on the contrary, bring us the world in its myriad expressions, shapes, forms, beauty, and horror. And in this, the translators who work alongside them should be honored far more than they have been, because without them, we would not have had access to this treasure trove. Writing this, I'm thinking, of course, of Jeffrey Zuckerman, my very dear friend, whose wondrous translation of Ève de ces décombres brought my work to life to the jury of the Neustadt Prize, and whose voice so much complements and mirrors my own that I think it is more than serendipity that brought us together. It is destiny. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm also thinking of the magnificent poet, Kazim Ali, who has reached out across the continents to me until our poetry began to hold hands. But to go back to my initial homage to the writers whose light guided me, I must point out how endangered books have been throughout history and still are. If a book that does not conform with a dominant viewpoint is banned, is this not an early warning of a dictatorship? Democracy has shown its fragility. We are teetering on a brink. Make no mistake about it. Prohibiting books from being read is not an anodyne measure. It is the silencing of voices that leads to the silencing of reason, of compassion, of hope, of humanity. So yes, the world today lies heavy on my pen, because increasingly there is a distortion of language, a narrowing of worldviews that is truly frightening to witness. Can writers change this trend? Not alone, not alone. I'm losing my voice as I'm speaking, but we need these voices to be heard. We need one another, and most of all, we need these books that have been our guides, our sources of understanding and reason, to win back the power of our pen. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Ananda. I feel like we shouldn't talk after that. We should just sit and think for a while. Thank you for those beautiful comments. Before we go, I do want to thank the staff of WLT, Dr. Daniel Simon, Michelle Johnson, Robert Volmar, Terry Stubblefield, Kay Blanc, Parker Buskey. Ours is a hardworking office, and everyone at WLT does so much to make WLT and its many programs a success. Thank you, President Joe Harris, for your support and sponsorship of the Lit Fest. Thank you, Julie Francois Tolliver, for teaching the Neustadt course on Ananda Devi's work. Thank you, John Vogels, I don't think he's here, from Colorado Academy, for bringing your wonderful students from Colorado Academy every year. Thank you, Women's and Gender Studies, particularly Andrea Marculescu, and Film and Media Studies, for working with us. I want to thank Mike Combs. You didn't know this, but there was an EMT sitting over here watching just in case anybody choked in anything, to make sure that there were no mishaps, which actually happened one year. The comment was that we had done a segment of Fear Factor, and he had passed the choking challenge, and next was an alligator in the parking lot. And he didn't think that was very funny. And I want to thank, I think she's gone, but the bartender, Samantha, did a great job for us. Nathan Brown and Nathan Barron did a wonderful job helping with transportation of the Neustadt guests. Thank you so much for that. This is like a play. There's just so many people involved in this. I want to thank Pat Horton and Richard Feinberg for the wonderful job they've done as our tech people over the last several days. They were in charge tonight. I want to thank the OU servers for taking such good care of us. And on a personal note, I want to thank Molly Kurtz, my companion down here, for being so good to me. As somebody in his early 100s, I can imagine that I'm dealing with me as no moonlit stroll down the beach. So I want to thank the students of the Neustadt class, and I don't want to ask them to stick around with Professor Tolliver so we can get some pictures with the Neustadt family. Thank you, everyone. Travel safely, and we will see you next year.
RC, when I heard you were celebrating 25 years as Executive Director of World Literature Today, I could not pass up on the opportunity to send my congratulations and express my appreciation. You have ushered this world-renowned literary magazine into the 21st century by broadening its readership beyond scholars to encompass all who are interested in international culture. In the process, you have involved OU students at every level through sponsored classes, the acclaimed Neustadt and Pewterbaugh programs that bring world-class writers to campus, and many other mentoring and internship opportunities. Under your leadership, World Literature Today has seen dramatic growth with the addition of the NSK Neustadt Prize for Children's and Young Adult Literature, 2 sister journals, and a statewide teacher outreach program, WLT Academy. This doesn't even include the outstanding leadership you've provided at OU outside of your role at World Literature Today. At every step, you have strengthened World Literature Today's connection to OU's teaching, outreach, and research missions, and with an eye towards the future, have aligned its new charter with the university's Lead On strategic plan. RC, thank you for all of your contributions to OU, our students, and the literary world. We are forever grateful. Congratulations.
Wow. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, we've been plotting this surprise now for a few months and wanted to thank RC after he's thanked everyone so profusely and present to him a plaque on the occasion of his 25th anniversary as Executive Director of World Literature Today. So it's a magazine cover that he can put on his wall now. R.C. Davis-Undiano, playwright, professor, scholar, and mentor, and as of this week, a proud grandfather to baby Sophie. Celebrating 25 years as World Literature Today's Executive Director. So on behalf of Kay, Terry, Michelle, Parker, Rob, and all of us, congratulations, R.C.
Actually, if you have just a moment, this is a surprise, a wonderful surprise. And I would like to say just a couple of things. I promise it won't be long. But again, as somebody in his early 100s, I can say that this iteration of the staff at WLT is, I think, the best that's ever been in the history of the magazine. And they're just such a wonderful group to work with. And a couple more thoughts that are coming to me. I can remember in the early 2000s, Daniel and Michelle and I began to think about what WLT could be. And we saw a couple of things to give us a little bit of credit. I think we saw that the university was not going to subsidize a magazine. No university is going to continue to subsidize magazines the way they had done in the past, and that we had to broaden our appeal and reach out to a much bigger audience. And this is very difficult to calculate these days because of different kinds of media distribution, but we know that our readership is over 1 million a year now. And we've worked very hard to do that. And I think the other thing that we saw, I think we saw it correctly. Again, Daniel and Michelle and I, it was just about maybe 2003, 2004, was that we had a mission. You know, we weren't just an office at OU, that we had a mission. And I remember an event, I think it was in this room. Okay, let me set the stage for this. I had only been at WLT for a short time, and 9/11 had just happened. And you remember, people were stunned, kind of walking around in a stupor. And I remember talking with Bill Riggin, who I think is over here. There was a in the works, there was a special issue about Middle Eastern literature. And I remember a couple of things. One, we had a beautiful sort of iconic presentation of some Arabic words that was going to go on the cover. None of us could read it. And at the very last minute, I thought, I think we need to find somebody who can read it. And as it turned out, it was something like Death to Capitalists or something, and we didn't go with that. And but we put a Palestinian writer who actually had won the Nobel Prize. And so the practice in those days, I'm not quite sure why we don't do it anymore, was at these banquets to have a copy of the magazine on every plate. And people would come in and be delighted, they're getting a free magazine. But this was post 9/11. So when people came in and saw what it was, and this is going to sound irrational, but it was like, they're after us, I mean, you think, when you're traumatized, you think strange things. People were shocked. And I don't think they were pleased. This intruded at that point. They were still trying to deal with what had happened. But as the evening went on, I overheard conversations where people were saying, I wanted information, but I was only getting sound bites on TV. And that really wasn't very good at all. Here's real information, and information in depth. And by the end of the evening, people were hugging their copy of WLT. The room had transformed in their attitude toward it. And I thought, and I already knew this, but I understood better over time, that the need that we were fulfilling and the cause that really is the embodiment that WLT embodies, there weren't other magazines waiting to do this. They weren't in line. I mean, this is not a profitable enterprise to tell people in a relatively isolated part of the world that can be a little bit fearful about things happening in other places. What's going on in other parts of the world? And so here, WLT was reflecting the world back to itself in very important ways when there was nobody waiting to do it. That's not exactly the case now. There are some kind of imitators of WLT out there. But I think everybody in the office feels the importance and the urgency of this cause, that we need to be doing this work. And I think for that reason, it's just every day, it's such a pleasure to show up and advance the cause just a little bit further. So thank you all. This is a wonderful surprise. Thank you for being here.